What happens when a Hollywood legend who has faced down killers on screen and survived real-life storms walks onto a late-night stage expecting nothing but laughs and light promotion, only to be real-life's blindsided by a calculated ambush? What happens when the easy charm of a late-night host cracks open to reveal something sharper, more personal and far more disrespectful than anyone saw coming? What happens when the studio lights feel suddenly colder, the laughter dies in the air, and one woman realizes this isn't just another fun interview, this is the moment she's being set up for public humiliation on live television? This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is the moment Uma Thurman reached her absolute breaking point. Armed with nothing but the truth and a warrior's resolve, she walked in, faced the ambush, and walked out victorious. The air in the studio shifted almost imperceptibly as the audience filed into NBC's iconic Tonight Show studio. Bright, unforgiving lights bathed the set in that signature late-night glow, while cameras hummed softly in the background. The energy was electric, fans buzzing, phones out, ready to capture every moment of their favorite stars. Production assistants started around with clipboards, makeup artists made final touches, and the familiar scent of fresh coffee and studio fog lingered in the air. Uma Thurman arrived 25 minutes early, as she always does. No entourage, no demands. She greeted the security guard by name, asked the production assistant about her daughter's soccer game, and thanked the makeup artist for the light touch she preferred. She was warm, humble, and genuinely kind, the opposite of the diva stereotype. Dressed in an elegant yet effortless black ensemble that accentuated her tall, graceful frame, with her signature sharp features framed by soft waves of blonde hair, Uma carried herself with quiet confidence. She moved like someone who had nothing to prove and everything to offer. The other hosts and staff greeted her with genuine warmth. Laughter echoed as they exchanged pleasantries, but Jimmy Fallon, seated in his chair, offered a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He remained seated while others stood to welcome her. There was something calculating in his expression, that familiar late-night charm masking a predatory readiness, waiting for the exact moment to strike. The trap had been carefully prepared. Backstage, Jimmy had reviewed his talking points with producers. He saw Uma as representing something he and his circle quietly despised: unapologetic strength, old Hollywood authenticity, a woman who had built a legendary career on her own terms without bowing to every modern trend. Producers had warned him to keep it light, to stick to the Fortnite skin and the fun Bear Grylls adventure. But Jimmy ignored them. He had an agenda. Uma had no idea what was coming. She was there simply to promote her new action film Pretty Lethal and share a few laughs. What they hadn't prepared for was this: a woman who had survived Hollywood's darkest chapters, raised children through personal storms, and still showed up with grace and steel in her spine. The first 7 minutes of the interview flowed beautifully. The audience laughed warmly as Uma spoke about becoming a Fortnite skin, her excitement at seeing fans play as the bride, and the joy of making her character dance when Beatrix Kiddo never would. Cheers and applause filled the studio when the dancing clip played. Jimmy kept the tone light, complimenting her repeatedly, telling her how much everyone loved her and how she should come on every week. Everything felt normal and pleasant. The crowd was engaged, clapping along. But those who knew Jimmy recognized the signs. He was unusually quiet at moments, tapping his pen, watching, waiting. The pleasant morning conversation, well, late night conversation, was merely the setup. Little did anyone know that the real interview was about to begin. Then the attack began. Jimmy leaned forward, his boyish expression transforming. His voice took on a new edge as he smoothly pivoted from the fun Fortnite segment. "You've done all these kick-ass characters, but you just shot something with Bear Grylls. Now Bear is this big alpha male type. You called him an alpha positive male and said we need more of that. What exactly do you mean by that in 2026? The air in the studio shifted almost imperceptibly. The temperature dropped several degrees. The audience went quiet. The other staff exchanged quick glances. A producer in the control room muttered, "Here we go." Uma recognized the ambush instantly. Her posture shifted, not defensive, but ready. She sat a little taller, her gaze steady. The pleasant conversation had vanished. One moment they were laughing about dancing Fortnite skins and ballet bloodbaths. The next moment, Jimmy was staring straight into something far more personal and loaded. He pressed on, using all the familiar late night buzzwords disguised as casual questions. Don't you think celebrating alpha males is a little outdated in today's world, with everything we know about toxic masculinity and privilege? Joy's face. Wait, Jimmy's face flushed slightly as he leaned in further, clearly enjoying the setup he had built. The studio went deathly quiet. The audience held its collective breath. Uma Thurman had walked into a trap. She had gotten one. But unlike what Jimmy expected, she didn't flinch. The escalation happened fast, back and forth. Jimmy doubled down with each exchange, his questions growing more aggressive. He brought up old Hollywood, suggested her strong female roles were problematic in certain lights, and implied that praising traditional male strength ignored modern realities. He tossed out terms like toxic, privilege, and outdated with that signature Fallon charm, trying to make the knives feel like jokes. Uma pushed back with calm, measured, devastating logic. She never raised her voice. She never got defensive. She spoke from lived experience. Decades in an industry that had tried to break her, raising children, surviving public personal tragedies, and choosing roles that celebrated resilience and strength rather than victimhood. The power dynamic in the studio had completely inverted. Jimmy tried to deflect. He tried to redirect with a laugh. He tried to regain control of the interview that was rapidly slipping through his fingers like water. It didn't work. The other guests and staff looked increasingly uncomfortable. Some tried to lighten the mood, but Jimmy ignored them or cut in. His face flushed red as Uma dismantled his points one by one with quiet precision, drawing on her real credentials, years of hard physical work in action films, the discipline of someone who had trained for iconic roles, the strength required to rebuild after personal storms, and the simple truth that strength, in men or women, wasn't something to apologize for. The audience started shifting. Murmurs of agreement began rippling through the crowd. What started as light banter became a full confrontation. Then the line was crossed. Jimmy made his worst mistake. He went personal, attacking the very authenticity and traditional values Uma embodied, subtly mocking the idea of strong parental figures and suggesting her celebration of alpha positive male energy was harmful to modern families and daughters. He weaponized the cultural moment against her personal journey as a mother and survivor. The studio gasped audibly. Several audience members cried out in shock. Staff looked horrified. Someone covered their mouth. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Jimmy had just crossed the line that even the most conflict-hungry viewers recognized as too far. He had tried to turn her own strength and positivity into something shameful. The hunter had become the hunted. In that moment, Uma Thurman stood up, the movement fluid, powerful, and deliberate. She rose from her chair with the same grace that had defined her legendary roles. The studio fell completely silent. All eyes were on her. She delivered her masterpiece response with devastating precision, speaking directly to the camera, bypassing Jimmy entirely and addressing the American people watching at home. I have spent decades in this industry, sacrificed, worked through pain, and raised my children with the values of resilience, respect, and real strength, not the kind manufactured in studios. I've faced real challenges, real loss, real battles that no late night monologue can touch. This isn't conversation. This isn't journalism. This is cruelty dressed up as entertainment. Her voice remained steady, controlled, laced with the quiet fury of someone who had endured far worse. Then came the killing line that would define the entire confrontation. My scars are my own. They were earned in life, not handed out for clicks. And I will not apologize for believing that strength, real, honest, unapologetic strength, still has a place in this world. Not from Hollywood trends, not from late night hosts, and certainly not from anyone trying to shame it away. The word strength landed like a thunderclap. Jimmy's mouth opened and closed. He was completely speechless for the first time in the interview. His confidence had shattered. The audience rose to their feet. Applause built like a wave crashing through the studio. Thunderous, genuine, unstoppable. The warrior had faced her accusers. With quiet dignity, Uma removed her microphone with deliberate, calm movements. She gathered her belongings without haste. This was not a storming off. This was a choice. A powerful, final statement. Before walking toward the exit, she delivered one final line, calm and deadly. Try new things. Stay game. But remember, some things are worth standing for. She didn't look back as Jimmy called after her weekly. The camera captured her silhouette against the studio lights, tall, unbowed, regal. The heavy studio door closed with a soft but final thud. The panel sat in absolute stunned silence. The clip went viral within hours. It exploded across X Twitter, trending worldwide as number Uma Thurman and number Tonight Show clash dominated timelines. Celebrities, fans, military veterans, parents, and everyday Americans shared the moment. Comments poured in praising Uma's composure, her class, and her refusal to play the victim. Professional athletes and strong female icons reposted the killing line. Jimmy issued a weak, carefully worded statement defending the segment as just fun banter. It was widely mocked and ratioed into oblivion. He took unscheduled time off shortly after. When he returned, the energy was different, softer, more cautious. Uma never publicly addressed the incident again. She simply returned to work. Pre-orders and interest in Pretty Lethal skyrocketed. Her legacy as an unapologetic, authentic force in Hollywood only grew stronger. In that single moment, Uma Thurman became a symbol for millions who were tired of manufactured outrage, endless apology tours, and the weaponization of entertainment against real values. What does it say about our culture when authentic courage is treated as controversial? When a woman who has given us some of cinema's most iconic strong characters is ambushed for simply celebrating strength? When the studio falls silent, not because of shock at rudeness, but because truth finally spoke louder than the host? Uma Thurman had proven that real strength doesn't need permission from late night television. It simply stands calm, unyielding, and victorious.